Welcome to New Mexico. Stand your ground, not one more inch pro Second Amendment rally. I know many of you have come from far, far away, and I can't tell you how much I admire you standing out here in the cold to do one simple thing, and that is to send a message, not only to Washington, to these fine people inside this roundhouse here, that this is where New Mexico is at now. We are giving up nothing else. From here on out, we're taking back. I need you folks to be loud. I want them to hear you in here. I want them to know that we're here. When this is over, I want you to go into this building. I want you to find your representative. And if he's not in his office, at least sign his book. Let him know you're there. Let him know you came for this rally. You want his support for the Second Amendment and an unqualified thing. All right, can we do that?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you all will join me, we're going to play the national anthem here. And while that's playing, this flag here.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Oh, those are little kids. Saying that.
If you would please join me in a brief prayer here. Oh, heavenly and merciful Father, please look down on your servants here assembled as they come together on this cold day to join together in fellowship and to attempt one more time to peacefully convince our elected officials that those gifts that you provided to us on this nation that you provided to us will never be surrendered. So let our voices ring out here today, and let the ears that hear it, that work inside this government, open their hearts so that they can hear the message. Hold all of us safe here today. Let all of us realize that we stand on a precipice today. That just as throughout all different parts of history, each and every generation has had to face the thing that would threaten to destroy them, we stand today on that precipice. Dear Lord, we stand today with the dark forces gathering and building and bringing a tyranny to put upon your people, to bring us to a point of servitude. Let our voices send the message today in an unmistakable tone, in an unmistakable quality, and in words that even a politician can understand. That we will stand with you, and we will stand with that great Constitution that you guided the writing of. We ask all of these things in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen.
Amen.
The line is drawn.
The line is drawn, that's right. And we're going to have to mean it this time, folks. As I said there, never before in all of our lives have we seen the resurgence of the evil and the tyranny that is growing in the land right now. You know, a lot of people who are not part of our culture, not part of being gun owners in America, don't understand that the firearm is freedom. Without the firearm, you live forever at the convenience of another man's whim. But as long as free men stand armed and free men stand prepared to defend the liberty of not only themselves, but their neighbors and their state and their nation, then America will remain free, and we will remain a free people. And that's what we're here to do today. Not only to send that message, but to also start making that very movement here in this state, as we expect all of you to leave here with numbers in your pockets and friends in your hearts that you are now going to begin to work with. And we are going to become a tireless, restless people who will haunt these halls, who will bring the message of freedom, unqualified freedom, to this place and to every part of this state. That's the mission that we're going to lay out here today. Now, we're going to be very fortunate. We've got some good speakers today. We will have some legislators that are kind of just going to have to come down when they can come down. And when they do, we'll stop what we're doing and we'll let them address us. We're going to have some other good speakers today. And then, of course, you're going to have Bob and I. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Bob Wright. Many of you know me. I've been active in this type of politics now for 25 years. Several years ago, I was fortunate enough to meet my partner here. And this is Bob Mitchell. And we eventually wound up doing an internet radio show called The Bob and Bob Show. And it was hard lower court politics. We're sponsoring this rally, and we want to be part of this, getting this message out, but also forming these networks where we all start working together, and we all start putting all of those resources and time that are going in so many disparate ways into a spearhead, and bring that to bear upon this political left that has decided that our country and our Constitution and our rights are no longer essential in this time period. Let me introduce you now to my partner, Bob Mitchell.
Good morning. Thank you for showing up, everybody. It's a nice cold morning. It's brisk. Got to keep the blood flowing. And I'd like to point out over here to my left, to your right, we've got a group of young people standing there. And that's the 10th grade class that's shown up as part of a civic lesson. And they're the ones that we're doing this for. A lot of us are standing here today, including me and my partner. We're getting up there, we're not going to do a whole lot of good for us. But we need to leave a country for these young people to know what we knew as we were growing up. To have the rights and freedoms that we have and that we have known. And that's what we're doing this for. And again, thank you all for coming out. Remember, safety is number one. It's very utmost. And other than that, we have some, as Bob says, some good speakers. And we'd like to welcome everybody. And I'm going to turn it back over to Bob and let him introduce our first speaker there.
Ladies and gentlemen, I grew up in a family that was very, very patriotic. The studying of the founding of the country came with mother's milk. We had veterans. We had people who absolutely loved the country. And that's what I grew up with. But when I was 10 years old, in 1968, I began to hear mutterings amongst my older male members of the family of concern for the Republic. Concern that things were turning to a way that would lead us away from the founders' vision. And what prompted this, of course, was the Gun Control Act of 1968. And what happened then. I'm now 54 years old, and I'm standing here so many long years later on another frozen Capitol step to fight this battle again. We have to bring this to a conclusion. And we have to bring it to the conclusion that will make sure it comes to the way we want it to be. We are the legitimate inheritors of liberty. It is a birthright. It is a birthright that comes with your being born here, and it was paid for with the blood of your fathers and your grandfathers. We will not be the generation in which American freedom dies. Now, I admit we've been lax and we haven't paid attention, and now the wolf is at the door. But we are the legitimate heirs of this founders republic, and we will not sell that birthright at any price. The thing that will hold on to it has to be those firearms that our founders made so certain and sure would be codified into law as being a right that which no government entity could approach. And don't make any mistake, that is what their intent was. It wasn't about duck hunting, as you all know. It wasn't about anything but making sure that the coercive power of the nation always remained in the hands of its people. And we have allowed ourselves to drift away. But time and tide and events and the people who have now come to power in this country are bringing us back. And we are going to come back. And we have to make sure that they understand one thing, if nothing else. The essential tools of liberty will never be surrendered. Never. For too long, too many of our leaders have been willing to compromise away your liberties. Willing to compromise away those things that were paid for by the blood of your fathers. We have to stop the compromise. It must be stand your ground, not one more inch. Now this message is going to surprise a lot of the professional political class. But there is an organization in America that has been sending that message for decades. We are fortunate enough here today to have one of the founders of that organization with us. And he's come in from California, and he's going to give us, I know what's going to be a good talk. I'd like to introduce Mr. Tim Macy, one of the co-founders of Gun Owners of America and West Coast America.
Thanks, Bob. I'm going to grab something out of my briefcase because I must be like the president. I need a little teleprompter here once in a while.
It's cold.
I want to read a little bit of something, especially for these young people that maybe they've never heard in history class, or I'm almost positive they've never heard in history class. The Christian Armenians in Ottoman Turkey were put under a ban on carrying of weapons. Cartridges, gunpowder, explosive substances, anything to do with guns. 5 years later, Turkish officials began disarming Armenian soldiers and police. They searched the homes of Armenians and forced them to hand over any remaining firearms. Once they were disarmed, Christian Armenians were led out into the countryside and they were slaughtered. They were shot until their captors were running out of bullets. Then they were drowned or marched to death. 1.5 million were murdered in that action. In 1918, the communist government imposed gun registration that required firearms to have serial numbers for gun owners to possess licenses or certificates. Does that sound familiar? In October of that year, an assassination attempt on Lenin was the excuse to confiscate all previously registered firearms.
I think it's about right.
Civilians were paid cash to turn in their neighbors who still had firearms. After Lenin's death in 1924, Joseph Stalin brought about even tougher gun control laws and effectively disarmed the population. Then from 1929 to 1953, the Soviet Union starved, executed, killed in one manner or another over 20 million of their own people. Disarming the civilian population in country after country in history has resulted in mass killings of their citizens. How many more examples are we going to have to see and read about and learn from history before we say, not us, not our guns? Some of you folks might have read about this, but interesting development in the last few weeks. If assault weapons are bad, why does the Department of Homeland Security want 7,000 of them delivered to them so that Janet Napolitano can hand them over to her staff for their personal defense? Personal defense. And in their memorandum, when they did a request for proposal to get a bid for selling the guns to them, they said they were personal defense weapons. Why are they assault weapons if we own them, but they're personal defense weapons if the government wants their employees to own them? I don't think we can stop with this one. We need to find out where's the difference. The interesting thing about it to me is these weapons are select fire. And for anybody here that doesn't know what select fire means, that means with the flip of a switch, they get to have fun because they become machine guns. If we can't own these guns, we only get to own the one that is a semi-automatic rifle, like most of us hunt deer with. But ours are assault weapons. Theirs are personal defense weapons. So anytime anybody wants to discuss assault weapons with you, correct them. Janet Napolitano has now given us the new terminology. They're personal defense weapons.
There you go.
So our current president, our attorney general, they're arming Mexican drug cartels. They're giving them personal defense weapons, but they're trying to take our personal defense weapons away. 2 Americans are dead because of Fast and Furious, and countless Mexican nationals. And remember, in Mexico, you have to get a government permit, which is almost impossible. And I will tell you right now, the people who get these government permits in Mexico to own a gun, they're the big donors to the president. That's who gets to own a gun. Unless you're a drug cartel member or another criminal, because you don't care about the law. Eric Holder has lied to Congress completely about Fast and Furious. Harry Reid made sure that Eric Holder was confirmed by the U.S. Senate, as were Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, 2 radical anti-gun Supreme Court justices who have written that the Second Amendment does not allow you and me personal firearm ownership. We're on the ragged edge of losing it all because of these people right now. And now we've just re-elected a president who's been, in his term, this next term, he will get to appoint 1 to 2 more judges, with Harry Reid still sitting in the position of power. And by the way, the other day, when Feinstein's assault weapon ban was first brought public, and all the weapons that are on there, Harry Reid said, the only reason the assault weapons ban wouldn't pass was because of those Republicans in the House. But now Harry Reid is saying we can't pass this. He's finally got the memo. They're not after your guns right now, ladies and gentlemen. There are 2 agendas right now. One of them is universal background checks. to make sure everyone in the government knows which of us has what and where we live and where our guns are. The other thing they're looking for is to have doctors and medical professionals tell us whether or not we should be allowed to own a gun. When the AMA is openly anti-gun, I'd say we better not let doctors decide anything. In fact, doctors kill more people than guns every year by tenfold. Well, I think that's enough scary stuff. Let's talk about what's going on and what we should be doing to help. The Feinstein gun ban is not going to pass.
That's a good thing.
But I will tell you, that is not their agenda right now. They are going to move heaven and earth and do anything they can to get universal background checks passed in this Congress. One good thing that's happening right now is there are over 256 sheriffs in the country, and the number's growing every day. 6 state sheriffs associations who have flat out said they will not enforce the law if the feds try to bring it to their counties. Call your sheriff. If he's on the right side of it, thank him. Ask him what you can do to help him. He needs you. There are people calling him right now on the other side, telling him they're going to vote him out of office because of it. Help your sheriff. And if he's not on the right side of it, ask him why not, and tell him you're going to vote him out of office if he doesn't get on the right side. And then stick to your guns and do it. There are several states like Missouri who have introduced legislation to nullify all federal acts and orders to take our guns away. And Missouri's I really like because they impose a 4-year sentence on any Fed who comes there and tries to impose a federal anti-gun law. I would love to be the Attorney General locking feds up when they came to my state to take away my guns. Right now, we have some great new leaders in Congress. We lost a huge one recently, Senator Jim DeMint, when he retired and went to work for Heritage Foundation. But I begged Jim DeMint to run for president, and I wish till today, I wish he would have. In 2010, we helped elect Marco Rubio from Gun Owners of America, Rand Paul, and many others, and a ton of members of Congress. 2012, I spent a ton of time in Texas helping Ted Cruz win, and he will become a hero, trust me. We helped elect Steve Stockman in Texas, who is a huge water carrier for the Second Amendment. And right now my staff is drafting a letter with Congressman Stockman and another senator to have everyone on the Senate side and the House side sign on that they will not vote to pass any gun registration bill that they come up with in this Congress. Why is that important? It's important because you have their names on the dotted line in the next election. And every time you turn around, right after somebody like Harry Reid gets elected to a new 6-year term, they get a little more anti-gun. But when it gets close to the next election day, they're all for the Second Amendment. Getting them on the dotted line helps make sure you can get them unelected if they go south on you when it's time. There's, I understand you guys also have your own assault weapons ban legislation happening in this state. I will tell you, to keep track of what's going on, I was just talking to Aaron Lee a minute ago from the New Mexico Gun Owners Association. You guys should track them down, find out what they're doing, and see how you can help if you're not already a member of New Mexico Gun Owners Association. Anyway, Gun Owners of America is going to, I asked my legal staff this morning to check one thing for me. If the federal government tries to impose a law and a sheriff can stop them in his county, if the state government imposes an anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment, unconstitutional law, can the sheriff in that county stop his state government? I'm getting as much information as I can on the legal end of it so I can make sure people like Aaron have it and Bob have it so that we can start fighting on a more local level. Every bit of it starts local, folks, from the dog catcher on up. If you don't elect the right people at the bottom, you'll end up with the wrong people at the top. That's how they get there. So help people like Bob's show and Aaron and the New Mexico Gun Owners Association. Gunowners.org is Gun Owners of America's website. Please go on there, join, get on our email alert list, and you'll keep track of what's going on. I appreciate you being out here. If we all leave after this and we all go home and we feel good, we don't do anything else, we didn't do anything. I wasted my time. I wasted my time coming out. I wasted my time being here and wasted my time going home, and so did you. Yep. Do something. We're running out of time. Anyway, thank you. I'm Tim Macy, Vice Chairman of Gun Owners of America, and I appreciate every one of you being here, and especially kids. And I just like you, I'm doing it for my kids and my grandkids.
Right, I don't know how many of you are real familiar with Gun Owners of America, but they are the only non-compromise gun lobby in Washington. We do have some membership material here, and Carol's going to walk through. I urge everybody to get signed up with them. Many of you may remember Larry Pratt, the president of Gun Owners, who tamed down that wonderful Piers Morgan. Everybody knows who Piers Morgan is? Pause for move. Okay, and then this is the thing that we have to keep in mind. He read off a terrifying list. And the one thing that we have to understand is that history tells us things. History instructs us. And what history truly instructs us in is that there is a pathology and there is a progression. And that pathology starts with the demonization, registration, confiscation, and then it ends, ladies and gentlemen, in mass graves. Now let me tell you something. If liberty falls here, there's no United States coming to save us. So it isn't just your liberty at stake, or New Mexico's liberty at stake, or even United States liberty at stake. If we lose it here, human liberty dies all over the world. That's the awesome responsibility that is on our shoulders as American patriots. That's what we're fighting for. That's why our message has to be the message that carries the day. That's why you're willing to come out here and freeze. That's why in the next little bit you're going to be willing to join these groups. You're going to be willing to make these awful trips up to this town. And it's a wonderful, lovely town. And it's a town that even itself is having surprising things happen. Even in this bastion of liberal, whatever.
No, watch!
They are fortunate enough to have formed in here a Tea Party. The Northern New Mexico Tea Party, who's set up a booth over here. So if it can happen here, how can we lose? And I urge you guys to stop by, visit with these folks, sign up with them, You know, let's make sure that we keep these things growing. Past that, we have to become relentless now. And I know that we all have activities. I know we all got grandkids. We've all got football games. We've all got these things. But this must now become what it is we dedicate our lives to. You will not change this country back to what it was with half-hearted measures. Let me tell you a little something about the people who are in power today. The people who walk the White House, those Chicago thugs. Let me tell you what they know. They came to power through the smoke of burning ROTC buildings. They came to power through the screams and cries of riots that rocked this country weekly in the late 1960s and early 1970s. They went out and they got their heads cracked. They went out and they got tear gas. They went out and they went to jail. They know what it takes to change a country. They know what price has to be paid. Keep that in mind from here on out. These are the people you're dealing with. These people have paid a terrible price to get where they're at, to take away your liberties, to destroy your country. And it's going to take that kind of effort, that kind of dedication, that kind of relentless, you know, you need to be that person when they see you come and says, oh God, here comes the gun guy again. You know, you need to be that person. We have got to resurrect the lexicon of liberty. We've got to put those treasured, precious words back into our vocabulary. They must be part of our daily speak. We don't hear those words anymore. Liberty is used where? Here, these rallies. That's where you hear that word. We have to put them back into everyday use. We have to reintroduce the concept that you, because you are born of God, are sovereign unto yourself. That unlike the popular culture where the good of the many outweigh the good of the one, that's not true. That's not what America was founded on. Here the individual is supreme. Here your rights trump all. Here our forefathers fought the greatest empire in the history of the world to establish that very fact. The very fact that men should be ruled themselves and they should be ruled by law, not men. Now, unfortunately, they have come to believe that I made the rules, therefore it's the law. But that's not the way we were founded. That's not the way it's supposed to be run. I tell people, how many of you guys are sick of hearing about the democracy? Now, I try to explain to people that the difference between a democracy and a republic, and it's a modification of Ben Franklin's old deal of a democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on what's for dinner. But in a republic, it doesn't matter how many wolves vote, you still can't eat the sheep. And that's an essential difference. Because we have watched a never-ending campaign of dumbing down our children, stealing their history from them, so they don't even know why it is they should be upset. They do not know why guns are important to a free people. They do not know about the sacrifice and the blood and the fire of the revolution. And the only thing that made that possible was the fact that in America, every man carried a gun. The things that we talk about, the things, some of us are old enough to have lived through times when those mass killing fields were in operation. So to us, they're real. But to most of these young people out here, they are an abstract proposition. They don't understand. And we have to reintroduce that to them, and we have to make sure they understand that the world is not a big, blue, warm, and fuzzy place. And that the man who's telling you he wants to keep you safe may not have your best interest at heart. We have to understand that freedom is dangerous. Freedom is not safe. It is not this government's place to make you safe. It is this government's place to get out of your way and allow you to secure yourself. For too long, we have allowed them to define what this debate is about. We've allowed them to tell us what words we're going to be allowed to use in this debate. We've been told that it's about crime, it's about safety, it's about all of these things. But what this is about is freedom. What this is about is whether or not you will walk this earth free people. And more importantly, whether these sweet little babies that are out here, whether they will walk this earth as free people. I believe that the left severely misunderstood the mood of this country because of the election of this president. I believe that when this terrible and horrid tragedy at Sandy Hook happened, they thought, finally, we're there. This is the tragedy we need to exploit, and we will ram this down people's throats, and we will scare everybody, and we will make this happen. And I think it's backfired, folks. I think your presence here is an indication that it's backfired. I think 30 out of 33 New Mexico sheriffs standing and saying we will not allow unconstitutional law to be inflicted upon our people is an indication it's backfired. Tyranny is trying to darken this land, but you know something? I think also at the same time liberty is coming back. The love of liberty is coming back because it's now we're starting to realize liberty may go away. So here, in this time, with this president, with this Congress, with all of these evil people, may lie the greatest opportunity we've had in my lifetime to finally establish that we are not going to give one more damned inch. All right, guys, I'm gonna interrupt this here. We're fortunate enough to have one of Chaves County's best here with us today, who has something he'd like to relate that I hope will kind of illustrate how widespread all this is and how strong these feelings are. It's my pleasure to introduce former Judge Korn and now current County Commissioner in Chaves County. Y'all give him a big hand.
Thank you all. You know, listening to Bob brought some memories back when I was on the bench of the number of people. You know, a lot of people think, well, if we make it against the law, that'll make it all right. But I can't tell you how many cases that I had where a known felon was found in possession of a firearm. Wow, what a deal! You know, did they not remember that they weren't supposed to have a firearm? No, that wasn't ever their defense. And I will also tell you that I was proud of our federal government. Please, don't lynch me yet. I was proud of our federal government because they would take a bunch of these known felon cases in possession of firearms and take them and prosecute them federally, and the criminal jail time was about 3 times what they were going to get for their possession of marijuana in the state of possession of drugs in the state of New Mexico. So they took it. Now that wasn't under the present administration. That was another guy, Bush, I think was his name. They were trying to enforce the laws that are on the books, and I think that we all agree that they're on the books. Let's enforce those laws and let's quit making them. Okay. Now I have a message that I got on the internet, so I'll give proper credit, from the great state of New Hampshire. Don't think we're the only people that are involved with these fights. So here's the story. We went to a gun rally. I wasn't there, but the person that wrote this did. In the it's cold as heck out here. New Hampshire Capitol in Concord on Saturday, on January 19th this year. I don't even own a gun, but I'm a strong believer in the Constitution and the wisdom of our founders, especially when it comes to government taking away our freedoms. And I don't like the direction Obama is taking the country on that issue. You know, America, land of the free, all the core strengths that made America great. We made a bunch of signs, I'm sure similar to the ones I see here today. And Dolphine prepared a letter before the rally, thinking she might hand it out to everyone who was interested. While attending the rally Dolphine noticed that the speaker had stopped talking and that he was handing the bullhorn to anyone who wanted to speak. Kind of like what we have here today, I think. She pointed out to me, and soon she was over to the Capitol steps, got in line, and waited for her turn. After fighting her way to the front of the line, she stood there on the front of the New Hampshire State Capitol and read a short version of the letter, and I'll read to you shortly. She brought the house down. After the cheers had died down, dozens of people took her hand and congratulated her. The representative from the New Hampshire Assembly talked to her and asked if he would come and speak at a hearing on gun control on January 22nd. She said, sure. On Tuesday, we picked her up from school at 12 noon and drove to Concord. We found our way to the Legislative Assembly Hall, room 204. The room was packed and there was a line down the hall and around two corners. Soon they moved the meeting to another room. The second room provided to be too small. Finally, they sent us across the street up to a large chamber in the Capitol building. The room was at near capacity. About 95% of the people were pro-Second Amendment right folks, similar to those that I see standing here. The representatives and the PACs got to speak first, and then the common folk. Dolphine was the first 10 folks to speak who were not representing a group. She was posed, though a little nervous, and spoke clearly to the crowd. When she was done, she brought a copy of her speech to the front of the chamber where the representatives were seating, and they fought over who would take a copy of it from her. The moderator had previously silenced the hall from cheering or clapping, but people told her they would have cheered if they could have and shook her hand on the way out. The whole proceeding took more than 3 hours. So here's the letter from a 14-year-old girl that doesn't own any handguns. Her family doesn't own any handguns. But here we go. You can insert New Mexico where I read New Hampshire because I think it probably makes good sense. Dear citizens of New Hampshire, 4 days ago I was across the street for a gun rally on the steps of the Capitol. I've never been to a gun rally before. I expected it to be all about hunters and guns. I was surprised. People were not afraid or not being able to hunt. They were not afraid of criminals at all. You know what they were afraid of? The federal government. I was shocked. They were afraid of the government taking away their freedoms. The reason I went to the rally in the first place was that I heard children like me talking with President Obama about guns on the radio. I think those kids were far too young to make policy, and they got it all wrong. Naturally, I went to my mom and dad. I don't want my mom and dad to die either, nor my friends or family. I learned in school about the First Amendment, which gives us our basic freedoms, like the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and freedom to assemble, which we're exercising today. To protect our God-given rights, our forefathers gave us the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms.
Stay warm.
My civics teacher taught us that the reason our founding fathers gave us the right to bear arms is to protect ourselves from the government of man, because when man is given absolute power, he becomes absolute corrupt. In 1776, guns freed us from the abuses of King George. Today, guns keep us free from tyranny by government. If President Obama wants to take our guns, isn't he taking away our means to protect our right to freedom? Wasn't the Second Amendment given to us to protect our First Amendment rights? Is it not by chance that those are the first two amendments? They were the two most important gifts our founders gave the American people. I don't know. I'm just a 14-year-old girl, and that's what I thought I learned in school. Did Mr. Obama learn something different in school than I did? Pretty powerful for a 14-year-old, don't you think? Wait a minute, there's more. I think it is terrible for someone to use a national tragedy for political gain, don't you? So when I heard Mr. Obama issue 23 gun control orders in the wake of the Newtown tragedy, I was upset. In school, I was taught executive means to execute the laws, not make them. Why did that change? Did the president swear an oath to affirm the U.S. Constitution? Doesn't the Second Amendment state the right for people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed? Let me know how 23 orders on gun control is not an infringement. Can someone please tell me that? Is King George returned? I hope New Hampshire members of Congress remember their pledge and do not use this tragedy, thank you, Bob, to create unjust laws. So I ask myself, what gun would our founders want their citizen militia to have today to protect us from government greedy for power? I think Thomas Jefferson would recommend a semi-automatic rifle with a 50-round clip, pistols that hold 20. But I'm sure George Washington would demand these guns. Just so you know, I don't even own a gun, nor does my mom or dad, and when I'm old enough, I want the right to buy a gun if I want to, so I can protect the America I love. I hope I never need one, but I always say, plan for the worst and hope for the best. Unfortunately, that's sort of why government is taking away our guns. They're planning the worst for Americans and not thinking of the best. Maybe the question we should be asking is what caused the morality of the United States to decay. Are parents no longer teaching their kids thou shalt not kill? I want to live in America with laws that protect the best people on earth, not the worst, don't you? Wouldn't that be more free? Wouldn't that be more American? Isn't freedom what American is all about? The right to bear arms is our best guarantee to live free. Finally, my track meet today at UNH, wherever that is, on Sunday, I read the banner on the wall. It said 3 words: tradition, pride, excellence. I hope and pray that New Hampshire will continue its tradition of excellence and lead the way for the rest of the country and never infringe on my rights. May the people of this great state of New Hampshire carry their long tradition of freedom so we can proclaim with pride the words our forefathers gave us: live free or die. This is our United States. This is our New Hampshire. That should never change. All from a 14-year-old. Thank you.
Well, people, isn't it amazing that we have a 14-year-old girl that can write a letter like that, that has a grasp of our Constitution, the tradition, the history, and everything that our forefathers worked their lives and gave their lives to provide for us today. And it isn't also amazing that we have people sitting in this building behind us, people sitting in Washington that have absolutely no grasp of what those words mean or what they stand for. We have a senator sitting upstairs, Senator Easley, and I highly recommend that everybody here today, when you get done, please feel free to go up and talk to the representative, because I did invite him down here today. I called his office yesterday. That was the one thing his secretary is worried about is, are people going to come to our office tomorrow? I said, ma'am, I said, if I can, I'll have everybody that attends our rally standing in line to get in your office tomorrow. You can all go. I want to see a line clear around the concourse up there. Senator Easley introduced the bill, House Bill 402, to take away our firearms, to take away those mean, nasty-looking black weapons that the government thinks the police officers and the Department of Homeland Security needs. Well, that's right. That's personal defense weapons for them, assault weapons for us. You know, we have to make sure we get that terminology down. We need to turn that back around on them. But as I was saying, I offered Representative Easley a chance to come down here today, stand behind this microphone, and explain to us, why does he feel we do not need to have a simple semi-automatic weapon? One shot, one pull of the trigger.
Can't do it.
That's right. Well, they can do it, they just don't want us to do it. And that's the problem.
What's his room number?
I don't have the room number right now, but you can ask the director right inside the building, they'll give you his office number. Yeah, this is a man, a simple pump action shotgun, an 870 shotgun. It's going to be illegal under his bill because you put more than 7 rounds in it. And I do have a copy of the bill, I've read it, we were going over it again this morning before this rally started.
I refuse to comply.
That's great, because I can see a whole bunch of people here that are not going to comply. That's the first step to all this. How many people out here are not going to comply? Let's hear it. Come on. That's it. That's the whole reason for this thing. We will not comply. Like on the banner, just like Bob said earlier, not one more inch.
Bob, let me make everybody a promise right here. If they are successful in closing the loophole on gun show sales, Bob and I will sponsor the first Fed-free gun show that will stand in open defiance of that law.
And you know what? I have a feeling for the people I see here today, the people we've talked to around the state and around the country, we won't be there by ourselves. We got patriots out here. We got 3 little girls back here freezing today. Step out front here, young ladies. Oh, they went inside to warm up. I don't blame them. Yeah, the cold will do that to you, especially little ones. They're out here today in the cold just like we are. We got a 10th grade class sitting over here on the wall. They're out here today supporting and learning what this is all about. We know this isn't ideal today. It's cold, it's windy, and it's nasty. But the people in there know we're here. We're going to make sure of that. That is the key to the whole thing. We have to make sure they know. We have to get together, folks. Yeah, we see one group here. That's where the opposition beats us, because they take and they go from one group to one group to one group. You see the same faces everywhere. And we've got to learn that from them. We have got to stand up, not just for gun rights, but for every right they're infringing on. That is the first step. We have got to get everybody united. There's the young ladies I was talking about right there. They actually had shirts made up to come out here today for this rally, just for this.
Can we take it off?
Let's see your shirt, sweetheart.
Come and take them.
Come and get them.
There we go. The whole family's out here today. And this is what we have got, the advantage we've got on them, because we have the blood of the founding fathers still flowing through our veins. They fought and they died for this country because of the people that they wanted to set it for. We're out here today because of those people and those people. They're the ones we're going to lead this country for. And those are the ones that are the most important to what we're doing right now. Now I want to turn the mic back over to Bob here.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
For those of you who want to know, Mr. Easley is room 205.
All right.
You know, one of the wonderful things about firearms, one of the wonderful things about people who love history, is the ability to reach back and touch our forebears, to feel what they felt a little bit, you know, to have those kind of things. I want you to look to this way and look at this display of flags. Now we're going to start over here with the Betsy Ross flag at the founding. We have the Don't Tread on Me Gadsden flag. We have the current standard as it stands today of the United States. And then we have a Don't Tread on Me in black, which I think is so symbolic right now. And then, of course, we have the one displaying the M4. And there's a beautiful sense of history there. Then we have this fine gentleman standing right here, holding on to a weapon with a bayonet that represents the defeat of fascism. It represents the liberation of Europe. The freedom for millions and millions of people. Moving on to the present day, I saw one out here somewhere, and there's one right here, which is the new Patriot standard. This is the new Patriot standard. It's called the 3% flag, or it's called the Nyberg battle flag. All right, and simply let me explain what this means to you. What this means is that it is believed that 3% of the colonists actually participated actively in defeating the British Empire. There was another study done somewhere where they suggested it only takes 3% of any population to change that population, to change the culture. So the 3 that you see there represents that. Okay? It is surrounded by the stars of the Betsy Ross flag because those represent those ideals that founded the country. Symbolically, this means that the 3% of the day have wrapped themselves in those ideals, but it also means you are the core, the strength, and the pillars of those ideals. The 3% who are willing to stand, the 3% who understand what this is about, the 3% who will never surrender. That's what this is about. And this is the new Patriot standard today. And I'm going to embarrass the heck out of her. This is called the Nyberg battle flag, and this is Nyberg. And she built the first one. She turned over and I get to go home with it.
I don't know, Bob, I heard you take it off of there.
So, we have to understand there is so much to the whole gun culture. People who do not know guns don't understand what all of it is. Why you can walk by at a gun show and touch a gun with the obvious love and admiration we do, because that gun represents so much. Just as that M1 Garand represents the defeat of the most evil things that were ever going on in our time. And that black gun that young man is handing right there now represents that same thing. That is the emblem of rescue, people. That rescues entire nations, entire cultures, and it keeps people free. So for those of you out there who may not understand that, try to grasp that the weapon is the thing that links us to every part of our own history. Our own history is measured in the firearms that were used to build this nation. And that's why they're essential. That's why they're part of our culture, part of our makeup, part of our understanding, so much of our language. How many of you have ever said, I'm going to get into this deal lock, stock, and barrel? That comes from guns. The lock was the part that fired. The barrel, of course, you know what it is in the stock. It's part of our culture. It is an American thing. Without the firearms, we will no longer be America. It will be something very, very different. We're still waiting on some speakers to get here, so. But like I said, if you look around, you look at the heritage that stands here, and all of us want to see that understanding. Guns are dangerous. And that's one of the things that allowing everyone to have guns says. It says, I trust you. I can look this man in the eye and I can trust him to stand with me, be around my children, whatever it is. Be with that deadly weapon because he's a free man. He understands the responsibilities of citizenship. And by strapping on that weapon, he's also saying, I am willing to take on greater responsibilities. The responsibility for the protection of myself, my family, my neighborhood, my state, and my country. That's what it means. So I recognize that this battle has gone on for so long. I recognize many people are discouraged. But I do honestly and truly believe that we have an opportunity in this time period. We have an opportunity now when they think they are at their zenith, when they think they've got the bull by the tail, to find out on the other end of that bull is this real ugly set of horns. Right?
You realize the world was, America was once more polite when everybody had a gun.
Yeah, was it Heinlein? Robert Heinlein one time wrote that an armed society is a very polite society. And you know, we have organizations here in New Mexico that I don't know if everybody's aware of. There is a fledgling militia movement here in New Mexico. We need to restore the militias in this country. They need to be real. They need to be real militias just like they were in our past. Not government hating things, not I'm mad because this president did this, so let's form a militia. But those militias that said, we are the defenders of our community, we are the defenders of our heritage, we are the defenders of the law in this country. I envision a day, I pray for the day, when a young man goes to apply for a job, the guy looks at his resume and says, oh, I see you're in the local militia. And then it's considered exactly what it should be. A mark of respect for your community, a mark of commitment to your community, and a rite of passage that says, I have stepped into claiming my part of this society. There's other groups around that lobby for different things, that are trying to make things easier for quote sportsmen or whatnot. We also have gun owners organizations here in New Mexico. We have one of the representatives for New Mexico Gun Owners Association right here today. I think he was wanting to come up and say a few words to us. So let me have the pleasure of introducing Executive Director of the New Mexico Gun Owners Association, Aaron Lee.
Thanks, Bob. I want to thank everybody for coming out today. We tried to get the word out to as many patrons as we could, and we got a few from my corner of the state. I'm from up in San Juan County, and we got a few from up there. But I want to know where everybody else is from. Do we have anybody from Santa Fe County here today? Good. I'm glad there's a few. Let's see, Bernalillo County. You guys have come a long way. I know we got a few from Lee County.
How about District 50? Easily
We're from all over the state. It doesn't matter if we're from Eddy, or from Lee, or from San Juan, or from right here in Santa Fe. We all believe it. From Lincoln. From all over the state. Every one of us is here for the same reason. To defend our rights. Now, there's two Napolitanos that we know of that are really famous. One of them, I don't know, I just don't even want to talk to her. She's from next door. The other one is, can they be any different? Judge Napolitano and Janet Napolitano? I mean, could they be any different? Now, Judge Napolitano once talked about our rights. And he said that your rights come to you from God. Or from being born, if you don't believe in God. They don't come from this piece of paper. This does not give you a right to do anything. It doesn't come from a government. It doesn't come from these guys in this building back here. You got it by being born a human. Now, if that's the case, and then we 200 years ago, or 230 some years ago, they decided that some rights were so important that they wanted to protect them from everybody, especially government. Now, the Gun Owners of America protects us as best they can and helps us as much as they can on federal issues in Washington. They get down here occasionally when we have something big going on, but their focus is not on New Mexico. Their focus is on Washington, D.C. New Mexico Gun Owners Association is the no compromise group for New Mexico. We spend our time right here,
Supposed to be doing that buyback tomorrow.
or in your own county, talking to you guys.
Now we can find
I've been to about 25 of our 33 counties over the past 3 years. Meeting people, talking to them about their gun rights and about what these guys are trying to do to them this year. Now, we have a choice. We have a choice in what we do when we leave here. And I know some of these guys have already told you. I expect all of you, even if you're 4 years old,
I'm from, I don't know.
to go in here and find your representative at least. I would rather you find all the representatives of the Judiciary Committee and the Business and Industry Committee. Let them know how you feel about House Bill 402, about House Bill 77, and about House Bill 137. Oh, wait. How many of us know what 137 is about? Oh, see? A few years ago, I was sitting in a meeting up here on the Senate side, and I was watching these people talk. And they were going on and on about all kinds of things. And this gal got up, they were talking about if we could carry a gun in Pizza Hut. They didn't think that was a good idea. This senator thought that was a bad idea. And she was letting everybody know it, right there on the House floor. And somebody next to her tugged on her shirt and says, you know, they can already carry McDonald's. You could just see this gal's face turn bright red. She was just so hot. About that time, if you were watching, the gears started to turn in her head. And she started to look around like this, and she looked this way, and she looked this way, and she turned around and looked up in the gallery where I was sitting, and where all the other people were sitting. There wasn't a lot of people, probably 40. She says, they can't carry in here, can they? Now, Tim Jennings, I don't know, he's not here anymore, but he happened to be sitting in Diane Denish's chair that day because she was not in the building or not, at least in the Senate. He says, well, I do. I got mine under my jacket here. And it took them 30 minutes to get an answer back from the state police of whether it was legal to carry in the Capitol building or not. It is legal. And I expect you to go in and talk to them. Now, they've asked you to leave your rifles, your long guns, outside. So, leave them with somebody you know or lock them in your car. I don't know that they can refuse you. Our state police are really pretty good guys here. They have to take a lot of crap from a lot of people in this building. Half of the people they're here to protect don't like them. Maybe more than half. They don't like people with guns around. So, just so you're aware, they probably can't stop you, but they would rather you didn't. And I respect them enough, I'm not going to carry my rifle in there. You guys can make that choice for yourselves. I don't think they can stop you, though, legally. Now, Mexico gun owners, I was sitting here, I spent all day here on Monday, all afternoon. And I sit and I talked to a couple of sheriffs, I talked to a couple of people here from Santa Fe, one of them at least is here. I shook his hand earlier. We stood around waiting for House Bill 77 to come up in committee. It took 3 hours before they even started the committee hearing after the time they said. Then, House Bill 77 was all the way at the end. Then we heard, oh well, we're not gonna allow any public comments. You're not gonna allow any public comments. Before it was over, half of us had left. Maybe more than that. There were still a few diehards around, and they finally got around to 77. They didn't do anything. They talked about it. They talked about some amendments. And then they said, oh, we're not going to vote. We're not going to do anything tonight. And they packed it up. They closed the meeting. In fact, they had to take an hour for dinner just before they listened to House Bill 77. After all that time. So, it can be slowed down. It can be stopped. And 2 weeks ago, when it came up the first time in committee, they had 200 gun owners here to stop them. They had to move that same meeting, that same committee hearing, to the House floor because too many of us showed up. And guess what? It didn't pass that day. They decided, oh, well, we'll adjust it a little bit for that one representative so he can vote for it. Well, they didn't even vote the next time. They gave up. They said, oh, we got to do some more rewriting. We got to change it some more. The other one, 402, is on at least rewrite number 4, and it hasn't even been in committee yet. It's been assigned to the committee, but they've already rewritten it 4 times. That was 2 days ago. I didn't look at it this morning. But as far as I know, they're still not on any calendar. Now, 137 that allows you to carry in a liquor establishment has been assigned to a committee. And it was on a calendar yesterday, but it was not heard. They didn't make any decision. So, let your representatives know how you feel. They all are here. Well, at least 99% of them are. There might be 1 or 2 that are out because they're sick. I don't know, have to go to the doctor or whatever. Go see them. Talk to them. You may not get to see them because they're in a meeting or something. But I would encourage you, if you know them personally, to at least poke your head in the meeting that they're in. Almost all of them are open to the public. At least poke your head in and wave at them so they know you were here. So they saw you if you know them personally. I try to do that every time I'm in Santa Fe, even if it's not for something I care about. I want them to know I was here because I'm watching them. And I expect all of you to watch them. Now, when we're done, and I'm not the last guy, we got a couple others that are going to come and speak. But go in and talk to these guys. Make sure they know you were here. And when you get home, send them an email. Say, hey, I froze at the Capitol and I didn't get to see you because you were in such and such committee here. Next time I want to make an appointment to see you while I'm there. You guys, some of you drove a long ways. Lee County, they had to drive 5 hours. If we have any from down around Silver City, they had 6-hour drive. I had not very far this morning because I was actually spending the night pretty close. But it's 4 hours from San Juan County to get here. So some of us came a long ways. Make sure these guys know you came. They have no other way to know. If you don't go talk to them and tell them I don't like this, you don't send that email or that phone call, they don't know how you feel. They know how the other side feels because I sat for 2 hours and talked to one of them while we're waiting for the committee hearing to start last week. And they live here. Some of these guys live in Santa Fe and they live in this building during session. They're here every day, all day long in a committee hearing somewhere, trying to take your rights away. Now, how do we fight that? It's pretty hard. If you're not here, if they don't hear from you, they don't know what you want. So let them know. You have about 4 or 5 bullets in your gun to let your representative know how you feel. You have 4 or 5. They have a fax machine. They still have those around here. I know most of us may not have them anymore, but they do exist. Go down to Kinko's or wherever and send them a fax. That's 1. Call them on the phone. That's 2. Send them an email. That's 3. If you can get down there and talk to them, that's 4. Right there, you give them 4 chances already. And there's a couple of others that you can do. You get your wife to send them an email. You get your next door neighbor to call them on the phone. But make sure they know how you and your neighbors feel. Make sure they know how your family feels. It is the only way. So, I have a 6-year-old son. I have 4 kids. My oldest is 14. I have 3 daughters and my little boy. This is why I'm in this. It's the only way to stop it. I have a bunch of information and some pamphlets. Feel free to catch up with me and I'll get you a copy. Thank you.
Here's the dirty little secret about the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment was not written in order to protect your right to shoot deer. It was written to protect your right to shoot tyrants that take over the government.
That, of course, is the incomparable Judge Napolitano. we do have one of our legislative speakers has managed to come down. This is Candy Azell from Chavez County.
Thank you, folks. I appreciate each and every one of y'all being out here today to help me stand in strong support of our Second Amendment rights. Folks, we have some bills that are going on that they're treading all over my constitutional right and yours too. And what you need to do, as I just heard whenever I got up here, get hold of your representatives and your senators and let them know your feelings, because whenever it comes from the person themselves, we are your voice up here in Santa Fe. And unless we stand up and protect that right, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to have any rights at all. And I don't want to read a form letter. I want to know what you feel about certain bills that are coming up that will literally tear our Constitution apart. Let us hear from you. Stay involved. Stay up here. Get in contact with your senators and your representatives. Keep up the good work. And thank you very much.
You know, I know that oftentimes we think talking to legislators doesn't help, but it really does. And when you do it in person, it carries a lot of weight. I lost Bob now. Okay, now it's the Bob show. We do have some really bad laws being contemplated up here. And we've got some very good legislators that are fighting. And she was one of them. Let's give her another hand as she leaves. Okay, we do have, it appears there may have been some confusion. There was another group who decided to hold a gun rally here right after we're done with our gun rally. And we're suspecting that some of the speakers have got crosstalk and they're not sure when to show up. Okay, not sure which. So we're trying to get that relayed, so you're just going to have to put up with me for a little bit. Tell you what, I spoke earlier of standing on a precipice, and we are standing on a precipice, we really are. While I really truly enjoy rallies, and I enjoy the rah-rah, and I enjoy quoting the founders, this is a time for sober thought as well. And this is time for grim and sober actions. And it is time for wise men who are engaged in the struggle for liberty to make wise moves, and we have to start doing that now. One of the reasons that they have been as successful as they have is because they don't fear us. Okay, you're lucky. I get to shut up and we get to have Representative Tom Anderson come join us here now. He's from Bernalillo County. Outstanding.
Good morning. I didn't intend to come out here to speak, and I'm waiting to drop a bill inside, but I'm powerful happy to see that you're here. You know, we have all these gun nuts, and we take them away from us and all that. But if you think that since 1954, all but three of these mass murderers occurred in a gun-free zone. We have to close this gun-free zone loophole. And we got to make sure that the kids don't get their hands on these guns. God knows what they do with them. I grew up in Kansas. I had a rifle behind my bedroom door at 7 years of age. I went to a military high school. Every single member of that class of the whole school had their own rifles. In fact, we had one, it was a 1903 A3, and that's what we trained with. You know, I have this feeling that the only real way to get rid of the bad guy with the gun is a good guy. figure out what side I'm on?
Good deal.
Yeah. I'm doing my best. I've been trying for 11 years. I guess most of you know I'm a retired naval officer. They turned me out as an ordnance engineer. My field was nuclear. I told people I break what you build. And it usually sinks in. Look, I'm very proud that you're out here. Thank you so much to be in this weather. And I'm going to go back down on the floor and see what I can do to help.
But we have to stop looking for salvation in this system. The system is not going to fix itself. If the system is restored, it will be restored with the hammer of patriotism, smacking this system out between the anvil of freedom and teaching this system that there is a shape we want it to be. And that we have the forge of rage, and we will put that system in that forge of rage, and we will use that hammer of liberty and pound it against the anvil of freedom until it returns to the shape we want it to be. Okay, that little sound bite there comes from the old Bob and Bob radio show. It's called the Anvil of Freedom. This system is out of whack. This system is bent. This system no longer functions as the tool it was meant to be. And it's time to stoke up the forge. It's time to bring your anger and your frustrations and bring it to a place where it actually accomplishes something. Where the wind of your anger feeds that forge and makes that fire red hot, and then we can take this system and we can lay it on that anvil of freedom, and we can pound it out with the hammers of liberty and our own justice, and bring this system back to the shape it's supposed to be in. We can no longer accept that things have to go bad. How many of you have heard people say to you, well, you can't change things? Have you ever heard that, ever? Really? Well, who the heck changed it this way? 40 years ago it wasn't this way. So it can be changed, but again, it's not going to be changed with a half-hearted effort. It's not going to be changed. What does the Bible say? Who will respond to the uncertain trumpet? No one is going to come to the uncertain trumpet, so that trumpet call must be certain, and it must be strong, and it must be every day. And we must live our lives with the idea that we now live that life of freedom. You know, I always remember a talk my mother gave me. I was a grown man, but she never stopped chewing me out from the day she died. And she was terminal, you know, and I had a commitment to do a debate with the head of the ACLU. Pause for booze. With the head of the ACLU here in New Mexico. But I had told the event organizer that I would arrange to have someone cover me in case she went south and I lost her in that period and couldn't attend. Well, as it turned out, that's what happened. She started going south on me, and the guy who promised to back me up didn't. So I was on the phone room trying to get somebody to cover me, you know. Well, she's hearing this. And she calls me to her bedside. And she says, I thought you were an honest man, Bob. I said, well, I am an honest man, Mother, but don't worry about it right now. You got bigger things to worry about. And she said, you know what? You told me and everybody that will listen to you that we're in a war. That we're in a war for the freedom of this country. I said, yes, ma'am, I've told, but don't worry about it. You know, She said, let me tell you something. I know a little bit about war. She said, when I was just a girl, my daddy walked off to war to fight Nazis. And he stayed till it was over. He didn't. When his son died of diphtheria, he didn't come home. When they buried his brother, he didn't come home. He stayed, and he stayed in the fight until the fight was won. She said, my husband walked off and left me big, pregnant, and went to Korea to fight communists. And when I lost the baby, he didn't come home. He stayed, and he stayed until the job was done. She said, now you get yourself out there and you do the job you're supposed to be doing, because whatever's going to happen to me is going to happen. That's the attitude all of us must now develop. Because the country is at risk. Your liberty is at peril. And that liberty is not just a word. We already live in a tyranny that King George could have never dreamed of. King George never had an idea that he could charge a man, tax a man, to dig a hole to go to the bathroom in. And that's the bureaucracies we live in today. They tell you how to paint your house. They tell you what your fences will look at. They'll tell you what you can and cannot plant on the ground that you own. And ladies and gentlemen, that is tyranny. Now we must understand something. The so-called gun show loophole. Does everybody know what that is? That means there are people who don't want you to have the right to sell your property without the permission of a mindless bureaucrat. That's what they're talking about. Gun dealers, federally licensed gun dealers who go to gun shows are still required to do those background checks. But what they're saying is, if you and your buddy want to do an exchange, you want to sell him a gun, that you're now going to have to go to a dealer and pay him to do a background check on your friend. And ladies and gentlemen, we can't have that for a number of reasons. For a number of reasons. All of society as we know it today is based on the premise that if you are going to be free, you have to have private property. And in order for private property to be private, you have to be able to do with it as you see fit. When that is surrendered, when someone else can tell you what to do with your land, what to plant on your land, how you can sell your land, or if you can sell your land, or your firearms, you no longer have private property rights. And if you no longer have private property rights, the level of freedom that you once enjoyed and your family once enjoyed has been diminished. Freedom's lost. I want to be very careful here. You need to understand this. Freedoms lost are never recovered by vote. Nobody ever voted their way out of tyranny. And we've got a small window here. We've got a small window to influence these people and at least get it stopped for now. We have to. But at the same time, they also have to understand that this argument will not end in a vote. It will not end in a vote on the floor of anybody, anywhere. The rights are not theirs to take or give. The rights they come with your being born. You are entitled to defend your life, period. Not at the convenience or at the permission of any other man or any government. So, that said, going back here just a little earlier, if we are not willing to put out that kind of dedication, if we are not willing to understand that life has fundamentally altered, and it's altered because the tyrant is at your door. It's not abstract anymore. It's not something you read about Eastern Europe in the 1930s, China's in the 1940s and 50s. It's here, it's now, and it's started. And all of these isms. Have you ever got a really smart friend or somebody in the second year of college, and you'll say, well, that's communist. They say, no, actually, communist is you control the method of production, but the government, I said, no, it doesn't matter. All those isms all end up in the same place, whether it's communism, whether it's fascism, or whether it's Obamaism. They all are headed for the same place, and that's mass graves and killing fields of the people who are foolish enough to believe that law should be obeyed simply because it's the law. Was it not William Pitt who said that necessity is the plea for every infringement upon human liberty? It is the plea of tyrants and the creed of slaves. And they do it to us all the time, and we buy into it every time. We're going to have to put a sign here that says you can't drive this fast to keep people safe. We're going to have to, you're going to have to get rid of your swimming pool because it's not safe for the neighborhood kids. You're going to have to give up your guns because there are crazy people. You know, we hear a lot about mental issues. Isn't that the thing now? We got to worry about mental health now, right? And so everybody's going to have a mental health test now, right? You know what? We do have a mental health problem in this country. But the mental health we need to be worried about is a government that decides that free people are, and the behavior of free people is to be regulated by the actions of insane people. Now there's a mental health problem we better jump on. Because that is essentially their argument. Because there are bad people in the world, we can't allow good people to have the ability to defend themselves. That's the argument. And this is what I was talking about earlier. We have to start controlling this argument from now on. We can no longer afford to waste time. I don't mean to offend anybody. We have over the years been told repeatedly that if we just talk nice, gun people or anti-gun people will love us. Or maybe if we drop a neat little comic book we can hand out at the schools, why, they're just going to love us. And if we don't ever pose for a picture with one of those ugly black guns, why, they're going to love us. Understand this, if you understand nothing else you need here today. These guns are irrelevant to these people. They want your freedom. They want you under their thumb. You know what? We made a mistake in this country when we started allowing these people to refer to us as human resources. We're not human resources. We are the citizens, and we are your bosses. And I'll tell you something else. How many times have you yourself said, I'm a taxpayer? No. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. The fact that you are a revenue source for this government is not your bona fides to stand up. Yep. Your bona fides to stand up is you are a citizen of this country. How many politicians have you heard refer to you as my source of revenue? Because that's actually what they're saying. But if you notice, it has become almost holy. It's what we stand for. Well, I'm a taxpayer. You need to listen to me. And that's how we have got to change this society. And we've got to change it by resurrecting that lexicon of liberty, using the words, and changing the argument to our argument. Because you can't argue against the lie. It's impossible.
It is.
So the argument is not whether these things will reduce crime. The argument is not whether we're going to stop all of these terrible school shootings. The only argument that we have to make is this is our right. It was given to us by God. Our fathers paid for that right in blood. And remember, we are our Father's sons and daughters. Too often we allow our leaders or leadership. I've seen it happen so many times where you get something that's working. You get a grassroots organization of one kind or another, be it land use, be it from ranchers or farmers. They get effective. They actually start accomplishing something. I've seen it happen I don't know how many times, where then the establishment will go to those leaders and say, you know what? You're a genius. You are the future of the party. But let me shepherd you through the next couple of years so you don't make a mistake, so you don't embarrass yourself. And all of those radical ideas and the things that actually made them effective will disappear. And suddenly we become respectful again. We don't want to offend people. We have to watch our language. Is there a more offensive words in this language than confiscation? How much more offensive can you be than I'm going to take your property? But we're not allowed to say anything back.
How about that?
I'll tell you another word that is becoming ugly. It is becoming the word of the tyrant. It is comply. So where's that gentleman? There's that gentleman. I will not comply. That must now become our watchword. They must understand that they can pass their laws. They can tell all the fools in the world all the lies they want to, and they can get these laws passed, and we will simply not obey them. I was serious about the Fed free gun shows. We have to do this. A good example, let's look at the illegal alien problem. Though you may not know it, it's against the law to come into the country illegally. Yet it is done with absolute frequency and absolute bold, I'm here, what are you going to do about it? Where do I sign up for my next benefit? And that's the way we're going to have to be. We're going to have to violate these laws just like that. Openly, defiantly. We will not submit. We will not comply. We will not surrender the essential tools of liberty to you.
We will not comply.
History has never provided us an example where this has happened and it ended well for the people who surrendered their weapons. Ever. Ever. Look at what's running this country. Look at just the newest crop of nominees for cabinet level offices. Ask yourself this question: would you allow these people to babysit your children? I don't think we need to trust them with our freedom either. Again, I think they're trying to find those speakers. One of the things that we talk about a lot is Constitution. And to most of this group, the Constitution is a very sacred document. Many of us believe that it was divinely inspired. It was divinely written. I believe that. We have on the table here, and I'm going to send some back to the Northern New Mexico Tea Party, we have pocket constitutions. All of you kids need a pocket constitution. We got them? Good. All right. See, my guys are always one step ahead of me. We're going to send some back. Please take one. If you have that annoying brother-in-law, take him one too. Make him sit down and read it. Okay. We're here to talk about gun issues, right? But we're also, the gun issue is just a symptom of what's basically wrong with the country altogether. And what it is we have a federal government that has forgotten and has ignored and has trampled on the bounds that were put upon it by the Constitution of the United States. All across this country, there are brave politicians who are introducing into their legislatures the idea that the state is sovereign, that its people are sovereign. We are fortunate enough here in New Mexico to have that happening here. We're also fortunate enough to have the author of that bill here with us right now, Mr. Dennis Ross. Mr. Dennis Ross.
Thank you for coming out on this cold and windy day. You know what, we can't be deterred by weather, right? Well, our fight is bigger than a little bit of wind, a little bit of snow, a little bit of cold weather. We have to take this fight to wherever it brings us. And I promise you that just as these gentlemen have been talking about, the gun issue is important. It's important to me, but it's a symptom. It's one issue in a bigger, much, much bigger battle. And so I'll tell you, what I've introduced this year is House Joint Resolution 1. And this isn't the first time I've introduced it every year since I've been in the legislature. Most of the folks out here have a constitution, and they probably are very familiar with the Second Amendment. Am I right? Yeah. Very good. The Second Amendment, very, very important. Very few people, though, that I talk to can actually identify the contents of the 10th Amendment to the Constitution. That's exactly what it is. It says that any power not specifically granted to the Congress in Washington, any power not specifically granted, is reserved to the states. That's exactly what it says. That's right. And so what we have become, though, in 2013, now 200 and some years after the Declaration of Independence was signed, throwing off the tyranny that we had from the King of England at that time, doing all sorts of things to oppress the people in this country. We have thrown off that tyranny, but now we're 200 years later, and we've allowed that oppression to rise again. But it's not on that side of the Atlantic Ocean. It's on this side of the Atlantic Ocean. It's 2,000 miles from here, sitting in Washington, D.C. We are now become not the United States of America, we have become the United Subjects of America. And the federal government has overreached in so many ways, not just in our Second Amendment right to bear arms, but in issues of agriculture, in issues of banking, in issues of education. I'm an educator by training, and I guarantee you, education was designed to be run at the local level and at the state level, not dictated by bureaucrats behind a desk in Washington, D.C.
Yes! Let's not hide the truth.
Well, there are some things that the federal government is empowered to do in the Constitution, and we ought to limit them to those powers. Because here's what happens, is if we start believing that the federal government can save all of our woes, we all know, standing here today, that a government big enough to solve all your problems is also big enough to take away everything you have. I don't put my trust in government. I put my trust in the people that are standing right here.
We the people.
Now, what's unfortunate is that my resolution, HJR 1, has already been heard in committee and has already been tabled in this building. Tabled meaning killed. They don't want to talk about freedom. They don't want to talk about the back to basics Constitution that is going to be needed to restore our country to greatness. They have already tabled it and taken action to sweep it under the rug.
Because they're all spraying.
Well, and we've got to make sure that we hold their feet to the fire. We've got to make sure that they know that the Constitution still matters, not just in this country, but especially here in New Mexico. I appreciate all of you standing up for that freedom and continuing to raise the issue with your legislators inside. Until we change the mindset in this building, we're not going to be able to change New Mexico. So you guys are the start, the front line, and you are here standing up for your freedoms. I commend you. I stand with you. We'll do anything we can on this cause. Thank you very much.
But as you're hearing today, there are good legislators here. There are legislators who do understand. Again, I want to urge everybody, pick up one of these constitutions. Send some of us back to the... Whoa! And that's called disaster. All right, we're going to go ahead and continue on here. We're seeing a change in America. We're seeing for the first time in my lifetime an assertion of sovereignty by local municipalities. We're seeing cities say, we're not going to do these things. New Mexico herself has refused to get in on this real ID thing, and so has, I think, 26 other states. This is a condition we've got to encourage. I know we get angry about things and we have big issues that really twist us up. But these things are just as important. The very idea of the states being able to overturn federal law is the best kept secret in America today.
Yes, it is.
You know, Madison versus Marbury stated that any law passed that is not in harmony with the Constitution has no effect. But that requires that you're willing to go out and make that point. Government is giving up nothing. They're not going to give up 1 ounce of power, 1 ounce of anything unless you go and demand it, and you are prepared to fight for it. Bob, you want to say a few words?
Yeah, we've talked here about different rights and freedoms and things that we have to go on. And one of the stories I like to tell the young people today, and they really can't get a grasp on it, was when I was 6, 7 years old. I used to walk down the street with a .22 rifle over my shoulder, walk down the hardware store, walk in, and at that time, here there's all the big counters. I was still kind of short because I couldn't even see over the counter. Collect pop bottles, take them in the closet. Yeah, kids, pop didn't used to come in bottles. Paid 2 cents to take the bottle and got 2 cents when you took it back. And that's how we got money for ammunition. We go in and put 50 cents on the counter, and then nobody thought it strange. You know, here's a couple little guys walking in here and getting 22 shells. Police didn't say anything. They didn't pull you over, stop, ask for ID. Wouldn't know what you were doing out there with a gun, haul you in. And we've degenerated from that all the way down to the fact that there was a 5-year-old boy back east here just a couple days ago that was expelled from preschool because he made a handgun out of Legos, and he was thrown out of school. There was a little girl in grade school. She tore a piece of paper into the shape of a gun, and she was expelled. This is where our society has degenerated to. Just the mere thought that some youngster may have a toy gun or a paper gun. And they're getting law enforcement involved. They're getting counselors involved. They want to know why they're thinking like this. Yeah, I sat here and I wrote a speech for today, and I sort of strayed here and there from it. But one of the things that I look out here today, and I don't see that many criminals standing out here around this podium listening to us. But you know what? We've got a government, and we've got senators and representatives that are trying to do just that. They're trying to make the people standing here that believe in their constitutional rights, that believe in the right to keep and bear arms, and believe in the God-given right to protect ourselves, and they're trying to turn us into criminals. Now, I don't know about you, but that kind of upsets me just a little bit. I gave a good part of my life serving in law enforcement. And as my partner Bob and I get into every now and then, because sometimes we have two different views, because I come back up at the time when a police officer was a police officer. I worked up in a time when I started out on the bottom as a patrolman and made it up to captain and assistant police chief before I left. We didn't have tactical gear we've been out on the street with. We didn't have polo shirts and bicycle shorts. You went out in uniform. You talked to the people that you were supposed to be protecting. You dealt with the public. You knew people by first name. You stopped and had a cup of coffee with them. Just stopped and shot the breeze for a little bit. And there's not very many of those law enforcement officers left like that. And that's part of the problem today, because the government has detached itself from the people I see standing here in front of me. That's right. They have come up with things like Representative Beasley has, where we have to conform. I mean, that's like one of my issues. I haven't conformed real well. As my wife tells me once in a while, I don't play real well with others. You know, I tend to get people upset. I get them mad. And it started my speech that I wrote for today, and I'm not going to get into it and drag it out that far. But the first line was, I am not a criminal. Right. I don't see the criminal.
Kind of shifty to me.
Well, I didn't say I wasn't shifty. I just said I wasn't a criminal. Well, we're going to skip back here a couple lines, because I've just sort of pieced through that. But I got a little message for some of the people that's upstairs here. How many people here ever had a rifle team when you were in school? Actually had competitions between different high schools. We had there's hands up. We actually had a rifle range in the gym in school. And that's where we held the competitions at. We actually had guns in school that the school sponsored. You know, that's one of those things that's just downright terrible. Can you imagine guns in a school that the school was sponsoring? Yeah, go ahead and stick it on. Okay, so anyways, here we got back now. We'll just sort of jump in the middle of this. So now here we are in 2013, and the other night, it's kind of late. We're running out of time. I'm off the big speechwriter here. You heard my partner, the best speechwriter, the two of us. We talk about the assault weapon is the bane of society. You know, without it, in high-capacity magazines, there'd be no gun deaths in America, or very few. Now, how many people believe that? No. If we got to rid of all these black guns that we see out here, or as the government calls them now, the personal defense weapons, that we would get rid of the crime. We would get rid of the deaths in America. Nope. Well, you know what? It wouldn't happen. Because the people that are out there, the criminals, they don't obey the laws. You realize that every major shooting in this country has occurred in a government-designated gun-free zone? Aurora, Colorado, in the theater. Aurora has a gun ban. Every school by national law is a gun-free zone. You know what? If laws would have saved those people, we wouldn't be standing here right now, because there was laws in place.
I believe in that one.
Murder is against the law in every state in this country. It didn't matter. They were still there. So Representative Beasley, I hope you're listening here, because I got a few problems with House Bill 402. And as far as the Second Amendment, Representative Beasley says, what part of shall not be infringed can you not understand? It's a very simple sentence. Whoa. Our rights to own these firearms shall not be infringed. Mr. and the others in this building behind me continue your course to deny the citizens the rights that we are guaranteed, you will leave us no choice. You will make us what the government keeps saying we are. If you try to take my Second Amendment rights, I will become a criminal. If you pass a law requiring me to surrender or register my firearm, I will become a criminal. If you pass a law requiring me to store my firearms and magazines at an approved location, and that is in his bill if you haven't read it, then I will become a criminal. If you pass a law that says I must buy a safe or turn in my firearms and magazines, ladies and gentlemen, I swear before you today, I will become a criminal. If you pass a law saying I cannot sell or trade my firearms or magazines without law enforcement approval, which is also in his bill, make no mistake, Mr. Easley, I will become a criminal. And I see a bunch of people here that I bet they'll be criminals too. Folks, they're trying to control every